Okay, so today guys, we are back with the microstakes guide, and today I want to make what I hope will be a quick video as a precursor to a podcast that I was recently invited onto with Peter Clark, where we talk a lot about the concept that I'm going to be touching on today. If you want to check out the podcast, I'll leave a link to Peter's channel below where you'll be able to check it out when it's uploaded very soon. So today we're talking about GTO versus exploitative styles at the microstakes, and why I think it's really important to start with a solid strategy that is based in theory and then deviate where necessary. Instead of just saying, oh, generally, it's 10 and 0, they never bluff here. When we do exploit, which is obviously important to think about doing, we should do so for very good specific reasons. We shouldn't do so just because generally the pool in these spots doesn't bluff. That line of thinking can be very dangerous to our improvement, but it also can lead us to misvalue in spots where that line of thinking just doesn't really make much sense. Okay, so what we're going to do, guys, is play this hand through to the turn. We're going to talk about what kind of decision a general microstakes player with these exploitative tendencies is going to make more often than not in this spot. And then we're going to go over to GTO Plus and look at what we're going to be doing from a theory perspective. And then we're going to talk about if we have any specific reason to deviate from that fundamentally sound theory approach. If you haven't already subscribed, guys, please consider doing so. Drop a like on the video, it really helps me out. For now, guys, let's take a look at the hand. Okay, so we've got pocket 10s on the cutoff, and villain 5 is going to open it up here. Now, villain 5 is an aggressive regular. He's playing 28-25 with around a 20% 3-bet at this point, but it's only over 400 hands, so we do have to be careful with the sample size. Nonetheless, we have a very easy 3-bet with pocket 10s. And it folds back to villain 5, who makes a rather large 4-bet to 22.5. Now, I know it's still a small sample, but this opponent hasn't actually taken too many 4-bet opportunities. It's only taken 2 out of 17 opportunities that he's had to 4-bet or more. But nonetheless, I think we are going to want to defend, obviously, versus this 4-bet. Even though it is a little bit larger, I think the pocket 10 is just going to fit nicely into a call. And then we'll look at some of the other hands we might have here. We may consider folding a little bit more than we might normally here. We can't really peel with some of the stuff that we might normally peel with. But on this occasion, I think pocket 10s is a reasonable call. We see 5 jack deuce rainbow, and our opponent leads for just over third pot. Now, obviously, this is a situation that we're starting not to enjoy very much as a general microstakes player, right? Because our general exploitative tendency is that, well, these 4-bet ranges are super narrow. He's going to have lots of aces, kings, queens, maybe jacks, and then, when he doesn't hit, he might not necessarily bet. Now, I think that everyone's probably going to take a card here. We have obviously quite a strong hand still, and our opponent could have stuff like ace king that he's going to take one stab with. The problem is at these stakes and our general attitudes is that when we call, we don't ever expect this bet to be a bluff. Oh, he's never bluffing here, as we talked about before. Now, I understand where you're coming from with that, like especially with the SPR. 58 left and 83 in the middle. It's not really a spot where you're necessarily going to see many bluffs. I can agree with you there. But remember, we want a specifically good reason not to do something, not just a general rule that we follow blindly. So what we want to do is approach this situation from a sound theoretical standpoint, and then decide whether we have any reasons to deviate from that. So what we're going to do is we'll go and talk about this in GTO Plus, and then we'll come back and talk about what we might want to do in this situation. Okay, so this is GTO Plus. First of all, we're going to talk about the ranges that I've assigned each player just very quickly. You may disagree in some small parts, but they shouldn't affect the decision tree too much. I think this is a reasonable range for our position 4-better. We've got some ace 5 suited, we've got some ace 10 suited sometimes, 25% of the time. We've also got the king 10s, ace jack suited, king queen suited, jacks half the time, ace queen half the time, and then these just strong aces, ace king, and kings and queens. And then in position, I'm flatting some aces as a trap some of the time, flatting some ace king offsuit. I've got ace king suited, king queen suited, queens half the time as well, ace jack suited, king jack suited some of the time, 25% of the time, along with 9s and ace 5 suited, and then I've also got jacks and 10s all the time. Okay, so guys, we're going to quickly fire through this sim. As you can see, our position 4-better is going to be doing a lot of betting on this board. It's doing some giving up with king 10 and king queen, and it might balance out by sometimes checking jacks and some other strong hands, but mostly it just wants to bet small here most of the time with its range. and I have given it the opportunity to bet the amount that our opponent did choose to bet on this occasion, which is around a third of the pot, just over a third of the pot. And versus that bet size, guys, with the range that I assigned for in position, which is us as hero in this hand, you can see that with our particular combo of tens, it's almost always calling. We did say that we were pretty much happy with this, but it's going to fold ace king, king queen, ace queen a little bit as well. But it is defending 76% of the time versus this call, and that small amount of the time that's going on in with queens, we can probably just ignore. Okay, so we do go for the call, guys, and we see the 4 of clubs, and as you can see, the out of position 4-better wants to be doing some betting with aces, some ace jack, king jack, also queens, trapping with jacks, and then giving up some ace kings, ace queen offsuits, and some ace king offsuit as well, and some king queens if it gets there with them, and also mixing some ace fives for various reasons. So our opponent on this occasion does go all in, and this is what the theoretical response apparently should be. Now obviously we're going to be calling with the trapped aces, with ace jack all the time, with king jack all the time, with queens all the time. These all make sense, right? With jacks all the time, that obviously makes sense. With ace 5, because it unblocks his bluffs, and it also has outs against like kings and queens, and we also block aces. So that seems why that's in there. And here, guys, you can see that 65% of the time we are actually supposed to call, given the ranges that I've inputted. With tens, yeah, 65% of the time. So as you can see, it mostly prefers to call with pocket tens here. So with that said, let's go back and take a look at the rest of the hand. So we're back on the table, guys, with our decision on the turn. And as you can see, by the theory-based approach, we should probably be calling here around 2/3 of the time. Now, the problem, guys, with saying that our opponents never bluff, that this is 10-0, this is a super underbluff spot, etc., etc., etc. The problem with that is that there are players that are going to be capable of bluffing here. And if we always fold this hand without a specifically good reason, we're probably going to be folding too often. Now, if we had very good reason, exploitatively, to fold here, for example, our opponent is very, very tight before the flop, he doesn't really 4-bet ever, generally speaking, he's quite tight pre-flop, then I definitely think that we could exploitatively fold here. But if we don't have any good reason, or indeed our opponent is a solid looking aggressive player, maybe even further on the aggressive side than what we're used to, then although generally speaking at microstakes this spot might suck, we don't have a strong enough reason to deviate from our theoretical approach in this situation. And I think if we do, we will probably be losing money in the long run. Now, obviously, guys, he's going to have aces and kings and queens sometimes, right? That's fine. But as we've seen, if he's playing quite aggressively and with a solid 4-bet strategy, then he will be having to bluff in this spot. Now, with all that being said, guys, I do decide to go ahead and make the call. Now, the reason I chose this hand in particular is because I think this is one of the most popular spots where people are going to tell you that they're just never bluffing here, right? The dryness of the board, the SPR on the turn, and the general tightness of pre-flop 4-betting ranges, people are just going to tell you to generally fold here, right? Now, for one, I just don't accept that that's true. I do think there are players capable of bluffing in this spot, despite those circumstances, even in microstakes. And two, if we do fold here against competent players, I genuinely do believe that that we're going to be exploited ourselves. So on this occasion, I do decide that I have to call. And the problem with that general poisonous thinking of they never bluff here is that I do think that we will generally tend not to even think about these spots too much. And then when we do get to a point where we can play a higher stakes, we're just not ready for people that are bluffing here. Now, what you will find some people telling you is that in this spot, they will think about the kind of hands that they'd want to call with here. Oh, I might call with this, fold this, call with that. And then they'll just fold anyway because it's microstakes, right? But the problem is, what if villain 5 is capable of bluffing here? And then if we always fold, we're probably just losing money. So on this occasion, I do decide to call, having no good reason to deviate. And our opponent shows us the 10-9 of hearts, and he's dead on the turn. Now, obviously, he's not always going to have 10-9 of hearts, guys. I do understand that. He will have some very good hands as well. But the point is, they are capable of bluffing here. And I think if we always fold in the spots where they're never bluffing, then not only do we not improve, but we also just straight up lose some value sometimes. Obviously, it's irrelevant how the board runs out, guys, but we do manage to win both runs against the 0% hand. But I hope you guys can see why I use this hand to drive home this concept to you guys. I hope you can understand at least where I'm coming from, even if you don't agree with me. like I said, I did talk about this a lot on the podcast with Peter Clark, which should be going up in the next week or so. But for now, guys, that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop a like if you did enjoy it, and I will see you guys on the next one. Stay safe.